Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Thursday Thoughts. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Michael Ingledew, Managing Director of Tech Data World, and this is our third Thursday Thoughts, and this should have been our fourth Thursday Thoughts. So that just leaves me to apologise to those of you who tried to join us last week, and I know there was a stack of you that tried to join us. I messed up my flight times. It actually turns out that I was flying back from Switzerland the same time that we should have been going live, and so I can only apologise. Thank you to those of you who sent in a love note to us reminding us that we should have been live. We did put a tweet out saying that we weren't going to be able to make it, so I'm sorry if you didn't see that, but we're back this week and here I am. And so just a quick reminder, I'm going to have to keep turning around because at the moment the machines are behind me, but next week these will be here, which means I won't have to keep turning around so much. And you know, what I want to say is, if you want to get in touch with us by any of the channels that we've got up here, please do. And if you want to put a live comment or something into us, then you can do that as well. I'm trying to monitor everything here as best as I can. So if I miss you, I know a couple of you made some comments and I didn't see them, and I apologise for that. If not, we'll get to it. So we are live today on YouTube, Facebook, TDIQ, and live streaming to our website. Again, YouTube and Facebook, you can comment and you can give us your comments directly. The website and TDIQ, we haven't implemented chat yet. We will do, and so you'll be able to directly send in your questions. I know the vast majority of you watch through our website because that's easier for you to gain access to. The YouTubes and the Facebooks of the world are all blocked to your networks, but I know that a lot of you are at home right now, certainly in Europe, that'll be watching. But anyway, those of you that requested access via TDIQ, we are now on TDIQ. I'm going to try and keep this to 30 minutes. I know that sometimes I digress and I can waffle. I will try my very best to keep it down as much as I can. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same as what we've done in the previous episodes. Is I'm going to talk about news, I'm going to talk about industry news, I'm going to talk about member news, and I'm going to talk about TDW news, and then I'm going to look at some of the questions that have come in this week, of which we've had a stack. So I've kind of chosen the best of the bunch, if you like. So what I want to talk about is some of the stuff that's going on in the market that I think may indirectly or directly affect what we're doing here in Technical Information. Now, whilst I was on the road, I saw a press release from Saab that was talking about how they just delivered one of their aircraft, and there was a little comment in there about how they had just also delivered information according to S1000D, or in accordance with S1000D. So I didn't take the web link, it was on my mobile phone. I will find it for next week and we will pull that up. Anyway, news number one, BAE Systems have just announced, or they're planning to announce very shortly, that they have sold 48 Typhoons to Saudi Arabia. So big S1000D project. How that's going to affect technical publications, I don't know particularly, because one would assume that the information already exists, but you know, maybe there's a translation requirement, maybe there's a new IETP requirement, maybe there's something along those that's going on. I don't know for sure, but I thought it was great news because I know that there was some concern around jobs, etc. For BAE Systems. I did see some news on a new contract that BAE Systems had just been awarded in the States for some thermal imaging goggles, etc., which I tried to pull out some technical information aspects around. But I thought that was great news. And news item number 2, Turkish Airlines has announced that they're going to be buying at least 50 units of combined Airbus and Boeing platforms, which is, I think, tremendous, because the last Thursday Thoughts we were talking about our concern for Airbus announcing, you know, the decline in A400M sales and those kind of things, which was putting a lot of jobs at risk. So I thought that, you know, that was great positive news. And again, I guess like the BAE Systems announcement, you would assume that a lot of this technical information is already in place, but I'm sure there'll be customizations for the Turkish deployments. And I think it's up until 2020 they're going to buy at least 50 units. And the article that I read stated that, you know, they're trying to compete. The Turkish Istanbul airport is trying to compete with Dubai and those kind of places. So I think there's a bit of money kicking around there. This one came up today actually, and I have sent in a request to Bombardier to confirm whether tech pubs played a part in this. But Bombardier recently won a Gold Stevie Award for customer services, which I think was or is exceptional news. Now, I've sent over a message to my contacts at Bombardier saying I'm assuming that technical publications sits underneath this. Didn't get a confirmation, but I thought I'd throw it in anyway. And yeah, absolutely fantastic news for the guys at Bombardier, because they've been in the news a lot recently. We are also in the AR world. I noticed that Volkswagen, and we'll put a link to this down below when we actually publish this live to our channels, is that they have issued a lot of their maintenance engineers the augmented reality, new augmented reality glasses, and they're actually trialing it on their production and their maintenance lines, which I thought was pretty exciting. It's a new type of technology they're using, and again we'll put the link below on how you can access that. There's a video online and we'll make that available to you. So member news I want to talk about very, very briefly also is GPSL. Last week, if you don't remember, GPSL did a webinar on using Windchill to support legacy S1000D projects. And if you didn't see that and you wanted to see that, I've spoken to Andy, who's now living down in Portugal, lucky Andy, that they did record it, and anybody who wants to watch that recording back, they can access it. All you have to do is just get in touch with either Andy Keefe at GPSL or contact us and we'll introduce you to Andy Keefe. And he did say that it was very, very well attended, and he said also that, you know, this was the first in a series that they're planning on doing. So absolutely we can do that introduction for you. Number 6, Aspire. I was with Aspire yesterday, which I'll talk a little bit about very shortly when we talk about TDW Live. Aspire are running a training needs analysis course, and for a limited period they've got a few spaces left, and they are offering 25% off that course. So if you are interested in training needs analysis and you need training on training needs analysis, Aspire are open to giving you a discount, certainly on multiple places, but they're offering a 25% right now, which is which I think is pretty decent for such a comprehensive course that they are planning. Number 7, Lionbridge. I want to shout out to Chris, to Tony, to Julie at Lionbridge. Last week they confirmed that they again this year will be supporting TDW Live, which is, you know, we're appreciative of, and we thank them for their continued support. They have taken a premium exhibitor package, which means they'll be presenting again their AR capability and those kind of things. So a massive shout out to those Lionbridge, and you know, thank you for that. Number 8 is our friends at DCS Sonovision have said that they are recruiting. If you have or you know of good technical authors, technical illustrators, project managers, DCS are growing, and they're growing rapidly, and they have asked us to make a shout out that they are looking for good people. So if you are looking for somewhere to park yourselves, follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter and all of those places. They publish regularly and we tend to share it as well. if they have something that they're trying to promote. And right now they need people, and they need good people. So I'm just checking that we cleared that. We did indeed. So that was member news and industry news. What about TDW news? Well, this week we were on the road, and those of you who have been following us on Instagram and Twitter and all those things would have seen some of the great places that we've been over the last week. And we've been in to see SEMCON, we went to see Aspire, and I had a dinner meeting with a lady called Kieran Dodd, which I'll come on to very, very shortly and talk about that specifically. But SEMCON, we went to their place in Warwick, and if you don't know who SEMCON are, I suggest you go and have a look at their website. Again, we'll put a link below. They huge in the automotive sector, and they have developed some really interesting tools and technology around information deployment and how you can get that information out to a maintainer very, very quickly. And when I very first saw the tool, I thought actually there's a use case for that in our sector. So the idea is that I took one of my customers in to see SEMCON, and we received a presentation. A huge thank you to SEMCON, because they brought a lot of brain power into the room, lots of very interesting people, and it looks like that conversation is going to progress, which is great. Aspire I was with yesterday, and we were putting together some thoughts on TDW Live this year, TDW Live 8, which I will talk about shortly. But the one I want to talk about is Kieran Dodd, Simplified Technical English Expert. If you've never heard of Kieran, it's because she doesn't really promote herself. She is one of the leading experts on simplified technical English and controlled languages, and how to use those controlled languages. And I've been trying to work with Kieran for a while now, and actually it was Berry Braster at Etaplan that introduced us. And what I suggested to Kieran was that maybe she did something for TDIQ that could benefit the wider community. Now it actually transpires that she had a slightly better idea, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask you, the community, to send in your questions around simplified technical English, because the subject of simplified technical English has been done to death, like S1000D. We all know what it is, we all know how it should be used, but what about the practicalities of that? That's why we're going to open it out to you guys. And Kieran wanted me to frame it in a way that said, you know, what is it you expect from simplified technical English? What is it you would want it to do for you? And if you send your questions into us, we're then going to sit down with Kieran, and we're going to do a live stream on maybe on a Thursday Thoughts or on something else, and we'll do a live interview where she's actually answering those questions for you. So if you are a simplified technical English user and you want those burning questions answered, or even if you're considering using it, what are the kind of steps that you need to go through, send those questions in, and we will place them in front of Kieran, and then we'll do an interview and a live stream and do all those things. We will tell you on Monday how to submit those questions. It will be a blog article that will come out with a form that you can fill in and send those questions in to us, which is I think will be a different way of addressing this problem, which is, you know, not the same old boring webinars, which I think is great. In the same vein, I spoke with Peter at Aspire, and I told him what we were planning on doing, and he actually thinks that's a great idea to do it in supportability and ILS. And so in the same way, we're going to open up questions from you around supportability, ILS, LSA, those kind of things. What is it you would expect those standards and specifications and processes to do for you? And then we will do a live interview with Peter, and we will broadcast his answers. And you know, Peter's been doing this for years, so we will broadcast, you know, his expertise live via our channels. So again, that will come out Monday, how you can submit your questions to us on how you want to use ILS-based specifications and standards, which I think would be great. Just want to say, we hit a huge milestone this week. It was actually Jamie that told me that our YouTube videos have now reached, I think, almost 4,500 collective views, and we've only been going for just over 12-18 months or something, which I think is actually pretty phenomenal. And you know, we went back and we looked at some of our older videos, and they don't look great. And but you know, we hope that the quality is getting better in terms of what we are doing. But you know, it just proves to us that that's just YouTube alone. That's not those that are also watching the videos on our website or watching through TDIQ. So we're getting a tremendous amount of interest in what it is we have to say and how we need to say it. So I just wanted to mention that. I want to mention our podcast last week, because when we announced our podcast last week, in terms of, if you don't know what we talked about last week on our podcast, we talked about the importance of technical information, and we drew a comparison to a recent accident that, you know, tragically killed someone. And you know, one of the factors was that there was a warning missing from some instructions or technical information, and we talked about that on the podcast. And you know, we quite deliberately, I tried to give a little bit more of a somber feel to that. Those of you that came back and said thank you, I just want to say thank you back. It's, you know, we like that kind of feedback to say that we're doing the right things for you and we're helping you. Now, I know, based on that podcast, there's a couple of organisations that sent that podcast through their organisation to say, listen to this and why technical information is important. And so I think, you know, that's vital. You know, and it just went crazy when we announced it on LinkedIn, which surprised me. And you know, those of you that have taken the time to send in your thoughts, thank you very much. We appreciate it immensely. Last week we announced a survey. We are trying to put together some surveys here at TDW and trying to actually capture some metrics from the market that can help us all as a community develop our strategies and develop our products and those kind of things. And what we've started with is we are doing a study into the editors that are available and used on the market. Now, we only announced it on Monday, and we have had a raft of responses, and those of you that emailed in your responses as well, thank you for that. I know some of you emailed in your thoughts around editors and the costs and that kind of stuff. We weren't particularly looking at costs, but we are looking at the popular tools that are used, and you know, any applications and add-ons and those kind of things that are being used. One of the questions we had is, how will you make the results available? The results will be published in our TDW magazine at the end of the year, and we will also present at TDW Live at the end of the year. So if you're interested in the results, and I know many vendors have already contacted us saying, you know, will they get access to the results? Let's get all the stats in first, and then let's see if it actually means anything, and then we can publish it and broadcast it and maybe do another presentation like this. That'll be interesting. But please take the time to respond. That'd be great. And you know, we have had a raft already. If you missed it, TDIQ subscribers, earlier on today we gave a live successful contracting for S1000D, and when we announced that on LinkedIn, we had over 1,000 views on the blog itself, and then not as many questions, but we had a lot of questions come into us. Will we make it publicly available? Now, the idea is, of course, is that this is for TDIQ subscribers, but I've spoken to the team here at TDW, and we recorded it, and we will edit it, and we will make it available via our website for those of you that are interested in seeing it, because I think the message is a good one, and the message is, you know, why you should avoid nebulous requirements. And those of you that want to share it with your contracts and project managers and those kind of people, we will make it available too. So that was done today. This week, as I mentioned, I was on the road, but the Innovation in Information event in July is now set. I was there signing the contract for the hotel this week, and they were showing me their facilities, and they were showing me, you know, where we were going to go. So Monday, registration will open for Innovation in Information 2. We are hosting it in the Midlands because you know, quite the reality is that's where a lot of industry is. That's where a lot of the manufacturers are of the products that we use. So we will be opening registration next week for sure. Those of you who have already sent in requests for information on that, you should already have that. So that just leaves me to talk about TDW Live, which is, I know a lot of you have sent in questions. When are we opening registration? Can we register? Can we pre-register? What's the cost going to be? I did mention a couple of weeks ago that we were holding off until we'd had our meeting with Aspire. Now, because what we wanted to do was set a theme with Aspire, and yesterday we sat down and you know, these guys are experts in ILS processes, and they've been doing it for years, and again they are going to run the ILS based topics. Now, spent most of the day yesterday with Aspire going through the ideas for this year's event, and we are set on a theme. We know what that theme's going to be, and we know the speakers that we are going to invite. If you don't know TDW Live, we don't open up the call for papers and that kind of stuff, because in general you get the same people trying to talk about the same stuff. We invite industry experts that can come in and add real value to the event, and we've got about 10 people lined up already that we think will add tremendous value to the venue. So we're going to change day one slightly. We want it to be more of a panel discussion around processes and practices, and not, I wanted to say going back to basics, but Peter thought that that was selling short what we were trying to achieve. So it's not going to be going back to basics, it's going back to principles and going back to practices and going back to processes, and how do we enable our end users now, tomorrow, and in 50 years time. So they're the kind of things that we're going to focus on. And again, we will open up registration next week. So those of you who have been hammering on and pushing us for the registration to open, we will open it next week for sure. So I just want to move on to some of the questions that came in last week, and some of them, if you are TDW members, you will already have heard some of this, and if you haven't, you know, oh, you're going to hear about it now. So we were contacted last week to ask to identify an IETP solution. Members should have received the notification of that, and it was a specific requirement for a specific client. Those of you who expressed an interest, we have passed your contact details on to the client, and hopefully they will get in touch with you directly. If you haven't heard anything and you want to ask us, send in an email to member services. Please don't contact me direct. Send it into member services, because they're tracking how that's progressing with the client. Another question that came in from one of our TDIQ subscribing organisations: can we broadcast these videos, these live videos, to TDIQ also, because TDIQ has been pre-approved by your IT departments? Hopefully you are watching right now on TDIQ. So yes, we are broadcasting also to TDIQ. The assumption was that you would be able to watch it through our website. It turns out that wasn't the case. So now we're live streaming to all those 4 platforms that I talked about. And you should be watching us right now. That question I'll leave to the end. One question that came in today, which I thought was really interesting, is will the new EU privacy laws affect us in Tech Docs? And it's ironic, I spoke about this with a client last week, where they are tracking personal information, contact information, address information of their permitted documentation users. So that would imply that those new EU laws will affect you, because you have to have policies and process, and everybody who comes into contact with those details need to be aware of those policies and processes and how that information is handled. And it's going to be the next big thing here in Europe around privacy. And if you've not seen, I'm sure this is a global news story right now about Facebook and how they data mine and how they give out information about you and I, and you know, and what our activities are and what we do and those kind of things. And I'm absolutely sure that if we are controlling and managing customer information to access our technical information, absolutely you will have to have a policy or a process to mandate your team to how that information is managed and importantly protected. A great question came in this week. I won't say who from. Do we know the size of the technical publications market in the United Kingdom? And you asked specifically aerospace, defence, space, rail, and I think it was automotive, I can't remember, but off the top of my head. And the answer to that is we have lots of data points on how much money people spend on technical information. We have lots of data points from our customers on what their annual budgets are in terms of departmental running costs. And we have lots of data points on how much they invest in software and those kind of things. The problem we have is probably 98% of the information that we have is protected by non-disclosure agreements. So we can't just go sharing that information with you or any of our other members. So what we're going to do is, once we've closed the editing or the editor survey, we will also launch a survey asking people to just generally give us their budgets for outsourcing, for insourcing, their departmental budgets, their budgets they have for software, training, that kind of stuff. So we can try and put some metrics together that can help business decisions, so you can make those right and correct business decisions. I think that's very, very important. So that was a great question, one that we are going to try and answer, and I think it makes absolute sense. In the same way, we're going to try and answer the question on ROI around S1000D, because again, we've been asked, can we demonstrate that S1000D actually delivers any real return on investment? And there's lots of anecdotal evidence, there's lots of kind of hearsay evidence, and we're going to try and put some real kind of formula behind this, and hopefully, you know, give you the metrics that you need to make those right business decisions. Right, the big question that came in this week, I'm just checking to see if we've had any chats. The big question that we have had this week is, how do we demonstrate ROI from our technical publications? And we're doing a podcast on this actually next week, so I'm not going to try and answer it in detail here on this, because you know, I've got lots of things I want to say in the podcast. But the reason I want to talk about it is because this also came up on a technical publications forum on LinkedIn through the week, where somebody asked the question. I'm being asked to demonstrate the ROI of technical publications, and then obviously the keyboard warriors started saying, well, if you don't understand what technical publications does, and you know, all those kind of things, really unhelpful statements. And but there were some like considered responses, and there were some really interesting responses from those that have clearly had to do it themselves, or have clearly had to put some thought into how do they demonstrate the value of what it is that they are doing within their organization in terms of technical information, support information. Now the reality is there's direct and there's indirect ROI, and you know, the direct ROI is something that I'm helping some clients with at the moment, is how do they generate direct revenue from their technical publications. And now there are ways and means of doing that, And one client has actually now started seeing revenue, dollar revenue associated through technical publications. That's actually means that their department has actually become something that's contributing to the revenue line, as opposed to being something that sits on the bottom line and is seen as a cost center. So so we're actually seeing evidence that that can actually happen and does happen. And so I'll talk about that in the podcast. But there's indirect ROI as well, which is reducing the time that customer support agents are spending with your users, for example. There's also indirect training and parts and MRO type activity sales that can be generated from tracking metrics associated with your technical publications. I was taken into an organization probably about 2 years ago now, where one of their key drivers was, how do we generate ROI from our technical publications? And what that meant is actually capturing metrics from that technical publications, and whether that was having our users grade a technical publication, whether it was them using the star system to say how helpful was this piece of information. You know, like if you go to the Microsoft or the Adobe websites and you go onto their knowledge bases, it asks you to grade the information. It asks you to provide that feedback for them. So I think, you know, absolutely the business is doing the right thing by asking what is the value of what you're doing, but we should be able to articulate that easily back to our organization on what it is we're doing and how we're doing it. So those are the questions that we had this week. That's the news that we've had this week. I just want to make sure that nothing's come in through the channels here. I am trying to do that and keep an eye on what's going on with you guys at the same time. So nothing on Facebook, nothing on LinkedIn. I know the guys on TDIQ and our website can't add comments. I'm sorry about that. But not just yet, we will do it. So whilst we were on the road last week, this is kind of my plea out to you guys, is what we did is we tried to put together a story of being on the road. So we said, you know, who we're going to see, the towns and the cities that we visited, you know, and tried to put together a story around that. And we've published one from Switzerland, which was okay, but we've got, Jamie's going to put together another one next week on our road trip here, where we went and saw SemCon, Aspire and a client, and I sat down with Kieran Dodd and those guys. Jamie's going to put that together. I'd like to know if that's the kind of content you want to see. Is this the kind of content that you want to see? If there's another kind of content, certainly around the podcast, we've had a tremendous amount of feedback on, and we will continue to do those. Is this the kind of content that you want to see, giving you the vendor updates and the industry news and the kind of trends that are happening within the market? Is this what you want to see? You know, is it? I mean, judging by how many people are online and certainly on our website, you're interested, you're liking what we're doing. But, you know, send us your comments, send us your feedback, and whether that's through any of our social channels, whatever it might be. Because we want to hear from you. We're building a network, we're building a community for you in terms of technical information and technical publications. And just leaves me to say, you know who you are. The client who signed up their entire technical publications team to TDIQ this week, thank you very much for that. I know that you had a trial for a little while and you like it, so you've put your whole team through it, which is fantastic. That just leaves me to say, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I know there's a stack of you on watching on our website, etc. Until next week, I will be here back at TDWHQ, and I look forward to any questions, comments or suggestions that you have over the next week. And I shall tune out, and once we publish this, we'll put all the links that we mentioned below.